A watermelon needs to hit about 10 on the Brix scale to taste truly sweet. Brix is the sugar content, and higher means sweeter. The problem is you can't read the number through the rind, so over 4 summers, I cut open dozens of melons, measured the sugar in each one with a handheld refractometer, and matched those numbers back to what the outside of the melon looked like. What I found was that 3 specific signs lined up with high sugar nearly every time, and none of them are the ones people usually go by. I'm going to walk you through all 3 in order. Stay with me to the end because there's one feature on the underside of every melon that predicts sweetness more reliably than anything else, and most people never even turn the melon over to look at it. Let me give you the numbers behind that first because I want you to know this isn't a hunch. Over 4 summers, I cut open dozens of watermelons right on my kitchen counter, and I pressed a drop of juice from each one onto a handheld refractometer. That's the little tool that reads sugar content as a Brix number, and higher means sweeter. The melons that actually tasted sweet came in around 10 to 11 Brix. The disappointing ones, the watery, flat-tasting ones, measured down near 6 or 7. That gap is the whole story. Most people get this wrong because they bet everything on one trick. They thump a melon once, hear something, and walk away. A single sign is noisy. It'll fool you half the time. I learned that the hard way. Back around 2010, my first real attempt at watermelon was one of the most humbling things I've done in 20 years of gardening. I picked a sunny spot, watered when I remembered, and ended the season with 2 melons that looked decent on the outside and were absolutely tasteless inside. So here's the shape of this. I'm going to give you 3 signs on the outside of the melon in order. Then at the end, the one feature on the underside that beats all of them. Step 1, look for the webbing. Webbing is that rough, brown, corky netting you see scattered across the rind. Some people call them sugar spots or pollination scars. They look like thin, tan scratches and raised threads, sometimes in patches, sometimes spread across the whole surface. Most shoppers walk right past them, or worse, they avoid them because they think the melon looks damaged. Wrong. That webbing is one of the best things you can find. When I ran the comparison in my test bed, the melons with heavy, extensive webbing averaged right around 11 on the Brix scale. The melons with smooth, clean, unmarked rinds came in down near 7. 4 points of sugar is the difference between a melon you remember and one you feed to the compost pile. I keep that refractometer in the garage next to my field notebook, and after every melon I cut, I'd write the webbing pattern on one line and the Brix number right beside it. After 2 summers of that, the pattern was impossible to miss. Here is the science behind it. Every one of those little brown scars is a record of a bee landing on the flower. A watermelon flower has to be visited many times to fertilize all the seeds inside, and each visit leaves a mark on the developing fruit. More pollination contact means more seeds get fertilized. And here is the part that matters. The plant draws sugar into the fruit in proportion to how many seeds it's feeding. More fertilized seeds, more sugar pulled in. So the webbing isn't damaged at all. It's a paper trail of how well that melon got pollinated. The failure mode here is picking the prettiest, smoothest melon on the table. A glass clean rind usually means weak pollination, which means fewer seeds, which means the plant never had a reason to load that fruit with sugar. I tested a perfectly smooth melon one August out of curiosity. 6.5 Brix. Flat as water. So the read you can now make is this. Run your eyes over the rind and look for those brown corky webs. The more of them and the heavier they are, the sweeter that melon is likely to be. Now, before we keep going, I want to share something with you. If what I'm walking you through here is making sense, and you're starting to see how much of this is a measurement problem rather than a luck problem, that is exactly what I built my book around. It's called Steve's 30-Day Maximum Yield Protocol, $17 at stevesgardenbooks.com. Chapter 2, The Measurement Foundation, lays out the whole record-keeping system behind my 22 years of data. What to measure, how to write it down, and it includes 2 diagrams showing exactly how I set up my notebook. If you are the kind of gardener who is past the beginner stage and wants specific numbers instead of vague advice, that is the chapter for you. If you're watching on your television, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time finding it. I'll be right here. If you're on a phone or laptop, the link is down in the description. All right, let us keep going. Step 2. Find the dried tendril. Right where the melon's stem attaches to the vine, there's a little curly tendril. Gardeners call it the pigtail. It's a thin, curling shoot that grows out of the node nearest the fruit. This one tells you whether the melon was picked at the right time, and almost nobody looks at it. Here's the read. If that tendril is brown, dried up, and shriveled, the melon is ripe. In my records, brown tendril melons came in right around 10 bricks. If the tendril is still green and supple, the melon was picked too early. Of course, those measured down around 6.5 bricks. The tendril dries out at almost the same time the fruit finishes ripening, so it's a built-in clock. The first season I tested this, I tagged 6 melons in the patch while they were still on the vine and recorded the tendril colour every morning. The day the pigtail went fully brown, I'd cut the melon and measure it. Every single time, the brown tendril melons measured a full 3 to 4 points higher than the ones I'd cut while the curl was still green. The plant doesn't lie. The records don't lie. Mechanism here is simple. That tendril and the fruit are fed by the same stretch of vine. As the melon finishes ripening, the vine stops pushing energy and water out to that tip, and the tendril dries and dies back. So a brown, crispy pigtail means the plant itself decided the fruit was done. Now here is where most people mess up. They look at the wrong tendril. A watermelon vine has tendrils all up and down its length, and most of them stay green for weeks, regardless of any single fruit. The only one that matters is the one closest to the stem your melon is hanging from, the node nearest the fruit's attachment point. If you check a tendril a foot down the vine, you'll get a green reading on a perfectly ripe melon and walk away from a good one. At the grocery store, the stem is usually trimmed off, so you won't always have a tendril to read. But at a farm stand, a pick your own patch, or your own garden, this sign is gold. The read you can now make is this. Trace back to the node closest to the fruit. Find that one curl, and if it's brown and crisp, that melon is ready. Step 3. Read the rind for dullness, then lift for heft. This one is 2 readings working together. First, look at the surface shine. An underripe melon has a glossy, almost shiny rind. Light bounces right off it. As the melon ripens fully on the vine, that surface goes from glossy to dull and waxy, almost matte. So the shiniest melon on the table is usually the underripe one, and the dull one next to it is further along. Then comes heft. Pick up 2 melons of the same size and feel the weight in your hands. The denser, heavier one is the one you want. In my test bed, when I compared 2 melons of nearly identical size, the heavier one measured roughly 2 bricks points higher than the lighter one. I'll tell you how dramatic that difference can be. One afternoon, I weighed 2 melons off the same plant on the kitchen scale. Same variety, grown 6 inches apart, almost the same size. One weighed nearly a pound more than the other. I cut them both and measured. The heavy one was a hair over 11 bricks. The light one was 8.5. Same plant, same water, same soil. The only difference was how fully each one had finished ripening, and the scale caught it before I ever made a cut. Here is the science. A ripe melon is packed with sugar and water, and both of those are dense. Sugar dissolved in water weighs more than the air pockets and unfilled tissue you get in an underripe fruit. So a melon that feels heavy for its size has more sugar and water mass packed inside it. That heft is you literally feeling the sugar. The failure mode here is choosing for looks. Most people grab the melon that looks biggest and shiniest and most photogenic, and they've just picked the underripe, less dense one. I've watched shoppers do exactly that and leave the dull, heavy melon sitting right there, the best one on the whole table. So put the 2 readings together. Find the melon with the dull, waxy rind, then lift it against one of similar size and keep the heavier one. The read you can now make is this. Dull beats glossy, and heavy beats light every time. Before I give you the best sign of all, let me clear out the 3 methods you've probably been trusting your whole life, because in 4 summers of measuring, not one of them held up. First, the thump. Everybody knocks on a melon and listens for a deep, hollow sound. I recorded the thump pitch on dozens of melons and matched it against the bricks, and there was no reliable correlation. None. A hollow knock can come from a ripe melon or a dried out mealy one. The fix is to read the 3 signs instead of trusting your ear. Second, grabbing the biggest melon, size correlated with sugar at almost exactly 0 in my records. An oversized melon is often just watery and bland, all volume, no concentration. The fix is heft for its size, not raw size. Third, picking the shiniest, prettiest one. I told you in step 3, a glossy rind is the signature of an underripe melon, and those came in several bricks points low every time I tested them. The fix is to choose the dull, waxy melon, not the showroom shiny one. Notice the pattern. The signs everybody trusts are the easy ones to see from across the table. The signs that actually work, take a closer look. Now, stay with me, because here is the one I told you about at the start. The feature on the underside that most people never turn the melon over to see. It is the field spot. That is the patch where the melon rested on the soil while it ripened. Flip the melon over and look at it. What you're reading is the colour. A creamy, buttery yellow to golden orange spot tells you the melon ripened fully on the vine. Those measured right around 10 to 11 bricks in my records every single time. A white or pale green spot tells you it was picked days early, and those came in down at 6 or 7 bricks, flat and watery. Here is the science. The longer that melon sits ripening on the vine, the more the chlorophyll in that resting patch breaks down. As the green pigment fades, yellow-orange carotenoid pigment takes its place. That colour shift tracks directly with the sugar building up inside the fruit. The reason this beats the other 3 signs is simple. Webbing, tendril, and rind each read 1 moment. The field spot is a cumulative record of total ripening time on the vine, and that is much harder to fake. So flip every melon over and look for golden, not white. That one move alone will outpick most people in the produce aisle. All right, before I let you go. The webbing in step 1 is really physical evidence of pollination. And if you want to grow your own melons that hit those high numbers, that is where it starts. Chapter 6 of my book, Steve's 30-Day Maximum Yield Protocol, is pollination optimization. It covers hand pollination, attracting pollinators, and includes a diagram showing the technique. It is 115 pages, and it is $17 at stevesgardenbooks.com. If you're watching on your television, grab your phone and point it at the QR code on screen. Take your time. I will be right here. And if you're on your phone or laptop, the link is right down in the description. That is for the gardener who is past the beginner stage and wants the specific numbers behind a sweet harvest, not guesswork. So that is how I pick a sweet melon nearly every time. Webbing, a dried tendril, a dull heft, and a golden field spot on the underside, all 4 read together. Now, I want to be honest with you. Field varieties differ, and growing regions differ, so read the signs together rather than betting the whole thing on one. If one sign disagrees with the other 3, trust the group. And if you want to grow your own melons this sweet, the next step is concentrating the vine's energy into fewer fruit. That is a whole topic on its own, and one I will come back to. All right, that's what I have for you today. I'll see you in the next one.